Well, happy, is it Wednesday now? It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Back with it, and we got a couple of things to tackle, both dealing with the issue of non-citizens. We'll hear some discussion from a late committee yesterday concerning the Federal SAVE Act, which is making its way through Congress to require citizenship requirements for those who want to vote in federal elections, and what Illinois is thinking about that. So we'll tackle that. But also the latest in the saga in federal courts concerning Illinois' migrant sanctuary policies. You have the state filing late yesterday a response to the judge in a federal case brought by the DOJ, challenging two laws in particular. So we'll have to get to that as well. The House is in today. The governor's got an event in Decatur after having an event in Jacksonville yesterday. So we'll see what he has to say there. And plenty of other action to tackle here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Again, I want to remind you to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Join the live chat, very lively group there, sounding off on these issues and more. But you can also get the segments of the show. And I understand if you do watch the live show on YouTube, there's some engineering that I'm still making sure that we get just right to keep the stream crystal clear, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily happen. But don't fret, you can get the entire show via podcast, uninterrupted, and you can get segments of the show clean, crisp, uploaded every morning after the show completes. So be sure to join us either that way or live. And don't forget, go to the website, thecentersquare.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter and get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning at thecentersquare.com. We're a nonprofit newswire service that is focused on state government from a taxpayer's perspective, and we get you those headlines each and every weekday morning and throughout the day. So, I mean, if you follow me on X, for instance, you can see the work that I do, and I also try to share my team's work as well, but you can just go to thecentersquare.com and get the latest there. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus Daily with the Center Square on YouTube.
We don't prevent the federal authorities from coming to our jails or coming to our prisons with a federal criminal warrant and taking them. In fact, I would like them to do that. But it is up to them to go to a court to get that criminal warrant.
Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday at an unrelated event in Jacksonville answering my question as to why the state's migrant sanctuary policies aren't harming public safety. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us here with Illinois in Focus and the Center Square here on YouTube. Get the podcast where you get podcasts. Look for Illinois in Focus. You'll find it. And get the segments of the show as well, and news clips and conversations about things happening across the country at the Center Square here on YouTube. So we've been tracking this federal court case brought by U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. One of the first actions she took after taking office in February under the Trump administration was to sue the state of Illinois, Cook County, and the city of Chicago over migrant sanctuary policies that are in place across the state prohibiting local and state law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. That's the Trust Act. And then the Way Forward Act went more and said that you can't have local jail beds be available for immigration detention. And local jails and prisons can't cooperate or communicate the immigration status of any of their inmates. So Pam Bondi sued. Then you have the court process playing out where they went ahead and ultimately asked for the case to be dismissed. And if you go to thecentersquare.com and see the Illinois page, you'll be able to see this story I put together yesterday. DOJ, non-citizen Illinois officials kept from ICE accused of murder after jail release. So here's where we're at. All right. So one of several examples that the U.S. Department of Justice gave of how federal officials were obstructed by Illinois and its migrant sanctuary policies. It involves an illegal alien released from jail, later being accused of murder. And you can actually read this yourself in the statement of material facts that was filed last week. So let's go ahead and pull this up so you can read it for yourself through thecentersquare.com. It's 12 pages long. It talks about federal immigration law is under the guise of federal officials. They talked about the president issuing an executive order about the southern border. You've also got the responsibility for immigration lying with the Department of Homeland Security. They talk about federal agents' authority under certain crimes committed, and especially since Congress passed the Laken Riley Act. That includes mandatory detention for people who are non-citizens committing burglary, theft, larceny, shoplifting, assault of a law enforcement officer, or any crime that results in the death or serious bodily injury of another person. So they've given more authority to ICE to go after those individuals. It just goes on from there. But when you get to some of the examples they lay out, they talk about the Trust Act, they talk about the Way Forward Act, what it ultimately does, and then you have the various, Cook County and the city of Chicago and their policies that have been in place for years, the welcoming city policies and such. But how this has harmed federal immigration enforcement, the Department of Justice in their filing last week in the statement of facts looking for summary judgment. Summary judgment is a legal term in court that ultimately spells out that you've got a question in front of the court and the plaintiffs are saying we want our side to win the day. And that's what summary judgment ultimately means. So the DOJ is pushing for summary judgment despite the state pushing for the case to be dismissed. But if you look at, defendant sanctuary policies cause significant harm to federal immigration enforcement and public safety. The section there, they talk about the importance of honoring ICE detainer orders, and failing to do so puts, the public at harm. It also keeps ICE from being able to safely detain somebody in a controlled manner. And it gives a couple of examples here. Let me pull this up for you. Going through, there were 4 specific examples they gave. On September 28th, 2024, federal officials issued a detainer request for an alien being held in Cook County Jail for criminal trespass, who was later transferred to Will County Jail for a warrant for the same criminal trespass and also for obstruction of police. Pursuant to the Way Forward Act and Cook County's restrictions, the detainer was not honored by law enforcement officers in either jurisdiction. Following the alien's release from local custody in October of 2024, he was again arrested, this time for aggravated assault of a police officer, gun charges, resisting an officer, obstruction of justice, and criminal trespass. The Department of Justice gives another example of here in Illinois. September of 2024, federal officials issued a detainer request for an alien held at McHenry County Jail on aiding, abetting, and possession of selling a stolen vehicle. The detainer was not honored due to the Illinois Way Forward Act. Following his release from custody in October of 2024, the Elgin Police Department arrested this illegal alien for aggravated criminal sexual abuse of a minor, 2 counts, traveling to meet a minor, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor, 2 counts. In January of 2025, so just as recent as January, a couple of months ago, federal officials issued a detainer request for an alien who is being held in Cook County Jail on sexual assault of a minor charges. Pursuant to Cook County's restrictions, law enforcement officers did not respond to the detainer request. Following the alien's release from local jail, he was arrested and charged with homicide just 17 days later. Just 17 days later. So yesterday, I was able to get over to Jacksonville, where the governor was holding an event talking about downstate grants to revitalize communities, and I asked him an off-topic question about this most recent one in January of this year, an illegal alien being held in Cook County Jail, not being given to ICE, and then being released 17 days later. That illegal alien was arrested, charged with homicide. I asked the governor how sanctuary policies aren't harming public safety.
How is your policy of the sanctuary, migrant sanctuary policies, how is it not harming public safety?
We don't prevent the federal authorities from coming to our jails or coming to our prisons with a federal criminal warrant and taking them. In fact, I would like them to do that. But it is up to them to go to a court to get that criminal warrant to take them away. I would like every violent criminal that is an undocumented immigrant that is in the state of Illinois to be removed from the state of Illinois.
Should there be more clarity on that, though, because they gave at least 3 examples in the court filing saying that another person went out?
I don't know how much clearer I could be. I've been very straightforward about this. I've said it the same every time. We can talk about the hardworking, tax-paying, undocumented immigrants who are here in the state of Illinois and what we ought to do about them. Those are the people that, by the way, if we had better border control and comprehensive immigration reform, those are the very people we'd want to ask to come to the state of Illinois, the hardworking, tax-paying, law-abiding people. But that's not what we're talking about here, right? These are violent criminals, and as far as I'm concerned, like I said, I welcome the authorities coming with criminal warrants to take those folks away.
So the governor saying that he wants violent criminals to be taken away, but the Department of Justice and Homeland Security and ICE need to come with criminal detainers, not civil detainers. That's an interesting line to draw here, but clearly a line that's been drawn by the governor. So while the DOJ filed their motion for summary judgment and statements of fact to back that up, the state had a deadline of yesterday to reply to a briefing schedule proposal, and they replied late in the day yesterday, ultimately saying that they're asking for the federal court, to delay a briefing schedule, saying that their position is the United States summary judgment motion lacks the necessary things to move forward. They also say that they want to ensure that the court deals with their motion to dismiss this case. So clearly this case is going to continue on in federal court. Just how long, we'll be watching. I'll be checking the docket regularly to see what the judge does in this case, whether they grant a motion to dismiss, or whether they look to possibly move forward with some kind of briefing schedule to tackle the issue of summary judgment against state sanctuary laws. We'll keep you on this issue, no question. It's Illinois Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with the Center Square.
And I believe that people with disabilities are just as capable of doing that as able-bodied people. As I do believe that it is, and pardon me for saying this, insulting to a lot of women to imply that somehow they can't manage to get an ID, or they can't manage to find their birth certificate or their marriage license. I think we're all very capable of that. You know, are there going to be a few unique...
Bring your remarks to a close, please.
And is just some of the hearing yesterday focused on the Federal SAVE Act and what it could mean for a state like Illinois. It's Illinois Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us here with Illinois Focus and the Center Square on YouTube. So the Federal SAVE Act, ultimately what it does is it says that if you want to vote in a federal election, you have to prove your citizenship as new registered voters. It's already passed the U.S. House. The U.S. Senate is considering this. In Illinois, we have very relaxed voting laws. We've got mail-in balloting in that. We've got the ability to do permanent mail-in balloting where you can request a mail-in ballot. We've got ballot drop boxes. We've got the ability to register to vote even on election day. And local elections officials have up to 2 weeks to count ballots that are being mailed in. So a whole host of different things where you can criticize or uphold and look at Illinois' voting laws. Now, you got to think about this kind of in a bifurcated way, right? Two lanes here. You've got federal elections for president, members of the U.S. Senate, members of the U.S. Congress. And then you've got state elections, which includes local elections. So state house, state senate, governor, Supreme Court justices for the state of Illinois, all the way down to your local dog catcher, right? So if the SAVE Act was to pass the U.S. Senate, gets to the president's desk and he signs it, it would only impact the federal election side of the ballots. Now, if Illinois did not comply with that SAVE Act, they would probably have 2 different ballots or something to that effect, right? It may also confuse voters, wondering why they're getting 2 separate ballots. But that's if Illinois doesn't comply with that and just make it uniform that you have to prove citizenship in order to be a registered voter. So that measure is moving through U.S. Congress. And yesterday, late in the day, they started probably like 2 hours late or something. The Illinois House Elections and Ethics Committee, they met to discuss the SAVE Act and what it could mean for a state like Illinois. And you can story from Jim Talamonte at the Center Square. The Illinois lawmakers debate federal voter legislation along with Illinois bills, and they brought it up. And the chairman of the House Elections and Ethics Committee, Maurice West, laying out what the subject matter hearing was about.
We have testimony concerning the SAVE Act. SAVE Act is an initiative coming from President Trump a couple of weeks ago, sharing that an executive order could be in place. One of the things, the 3 benchmarks of our elections here in the state of Illinois are focused around security, accessibility, and fairness. And in my opinion, as the chair, the fact that elections has its own standalone committee in this chamber and not in the Senate, it's incumbent of us to ensure that we are being proactive rather than reactive of what's to come. So
what is to come, right? It's a good question. The measure was supported by Carrie Zalotsko with Election Integrity Network, and she was testifying virtually about the things that she says are important to consider as somebody who supports requiring federal elections to require the proof of citizenship. Here she is yesterday talking to the committee.
Mechanism for attesting that a registrant is a U.S. citizen and eligible to vote is a small checkbox on a federal postcard voter registration form. What the NVRA did not include in 1993 was a mechanism for proof that the registrant is a U.S. citizen. That is simply what the SAVE Act does. Those of us who have concerns about non-citizen voting are often told, well, it's already illegal, so no need for the SAVE Act. The 3 most common crimes in the United States are theft, assault, and drug trafficking. They are all against the law, just like non-citizen voting, but they still happen. It is no different from nonsense voting. A law by itself doesn't prevent a whole lot.
And we see that, like she said, burglary and murder and so on. So why not just take that extra step to have a requirement that you have to prove citizenship in order to vote in federal elections? She continues on to really lean into the idea of that really protects non-citizens in the country, because some of them may be confused when local clerks hand them certain documents when they're registering for this or registering for that.
Perhaps you honestly think, and I think this happens very, very often, residency means you can vote. This is not a ridiculous assumption for a new resident to think. A government clerk hands you a postcard and says, check this box if you want to register to vote, and you say, oh, of course I do. In July of 2024, a change in Illinois state law allows not just non-citizens, but illegal immigrants, undocumented migrants, whatever word you like, to obtain driver's licenses. The Social Security Administration provides Social Security numbers to non-citizens who are here lawfully as well as we know as to those who are unlawfully. So what do you need to register in Illinois to vote? A driver's license in the last 4 of your social. Surely we see the problem, and surely it worries all of you as it worries us. And surely you want to make sure that you are protecting the ballots of your constituents back in your districts, and this is a foremost priority. So let's talk about unlawful voters and what could happen to them when they vote. We have a meme we often use in our non-citizen voting discussions. It says, protect non-citizens, don't let them vote. We are not kidding. We really mean it. And we really hope you feel that way too.
So you got to think about that. If a non-citizen votes, it's against the law, and they could be finding themselves with a one-way ticket out of the country. So you got an idea of protecting non-citizens from breaking the law, ensure they can't register to vote. State Representative Katie Stewart, Democrats from the Edwardsville area, I believe, she opposes the Federal SAVE Act, and she says it's going to disenfranchise voters.
The SAVE Act would require that if to request a vote by mail application, to make an in-person request of that application. To me, that is completely nonsensical and is going to disenfranchise people with disabilities. I believe people with disabilities should be able to vote, and I think that the SAVE Act would take away that ability. I think we all know that it will very much disenfranchise many women, especially. Many women have their names. I am one of those women. I happen to have a real ID and a passport because I do travel. I have children that live in other parts of the country, and I visit them, and I would hope to also travel overseas at other times. But I have an 85-year-old mother-in-law who she's been Sayward for as long as she can probably remember, but that's not her birth name. Her birth certificate does not match her ID. She would not be able to vote. You're going to disenfranchise my 85-year-old mother-in-law with this. Thanks.
Well, I assume that your 85-year-old mother-in-law is already registered to vote. The SAVE Act applies to new registrants, not previous registrants. And
If my mother-in-law were to move, she would lose her ability to be a registered voter.
as far as, of course, everyone wants people with disabilities to vote. No one is going to pass a federal law that blocks that. Within the SAVE Act,
This act, in its stance right now, does that to people with disabilities.
the SAVE Act very specifically and deliberately gives the power to the states, just like in your Constitution that says the General Assembly can make registration guidelines, to give you in Illinois the ability to write those laws of registration the way you want them. So if you want people to vote to register online, you can do that. If you want to have people register by telephone somehow into your boards, you can do that. They only have to provide proof of citizenship. And I believe that people with disabilities are just as capable of doing that as able-bodied people. As I do believe that it is, and pardon me for saying this, insulting to a lot of women to imply that somehow they can't manage to get an ID or they can't manage to find their birth certificate or their marriage license. I think we're all very capable of that. You know, are there going to be a few unique
Bring your
cases?
remarks to a close, please.
Yes. There may be a few cases that is a challenge for. I mean, in any law, there's always an outlier. By and large, it does not disenfranchise anyone at all.
And we'll be watching that as well. Till Illinois in Focus Daily, I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, wake up with us here with the Center Square on YouTube each and every weekday morning. Get the news clips, get these show segments, and get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. Don't forget, sign up for a newsletter at thecentersquare.com. All right, I appreciate those who stuck around for the live video stream. Some saying it's still glitchy with the audio cracking. Recent 2 weeks has been that way. If you guys recall, those who have been here for a bit, it seemed like every time at 8 o'clock when I'd go live, I don't know, it's because there's a school right down the street, but internet congestion or something, but I'm going to have to tweak some of these cables and computers and all of that. All right. got to get out of here, get the news day going. Have yourself a wonderful Wednesday. We'll be back at it tomorrow here with Illinois in Focus Daily, closer to the weekend. Best to you and yours, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Chris.